you've been wondering why your internet connection seems to be so slow, why you've been having trouble perhaps logging in to Facebook and Twitter and not seeing a lot of activity there either, well, believe us, you've not been alone. It's being touted as the biggest cyber attack in the history of the world, with some going so far as to say that this could be the beginning of the end of the internet as we know it.
Web pages opening a little slower, some pages not opening at all, and some sites completely unavailable. Video streaming a little slower or completely freezing. Your Facebook and Twitter updates taking forever to refresh. If that's what you've been experiencing in the past few hours, then don't just blame your local internet service provider. You're just part of a global internet slowdown that has come about from within the biggest cyber attack in the history of the online world. Online doomsday predictors have turned this the start of the end of the internet and asked people to be prepared for a day where the internet doesn't exist anymore. That would be a gross exaggeration. While there is a noticeable slowdown in many parts, the internet in itself isn't dying. This is the result of a bloody battle between online companies. Spam fighting organization Spam House is being subjected to a massive cyber attack from groups angry at being blacklisted by the Geneva-based company. Spam House reportedly suffered a distributed denial of service attack which at times peaked at more than 300 billion bits per second of data, 3 times higher than the previous record attack of 100 Gbps. Anybody trying to access the net within the path that this attack was traveling would feel that the net is dead. And as coincidences go, Etisalat, one of the biggest internet providers, suffered a break in one of its fiber optic cables in the Mediterranean off the Egyptian coast near Alexandria. This has led to most of the Middle East and others going dark too. Both are completely unrelated events though. While the slowdown is real and the impact huge, the internet in itself is safe and ticking. The DDoS attack was directed at a specific target and did not directly impact critical infrastructure of the internet itself. But this is a cautionary tale, from which lessons for the future must be learnt. An attack of this scale, targeting multiple regions and institutions, is very much possible, and that then may well have a devastating ripple effect across the entire internet.
We're asking, are we too dependent on the net? What is really going to happen in the event of an actual internet apocalypse that people are talking about? Well, joining us tonight on this discussion, Jiten Jain, co-founder of the Hackers Conference, a cybersecurity analyst. Also being joined by Aparna Vishwanathan, barrister at law and author of Cyber Law, Indian and International Perspectives. Suresh Ramasubramaniam joins us also. He is an anti-spam and compliance architect for IBM as well as a cyber security expert. Jiten, let me just begin with you. Considering how many online doomsday prophets are calling this the end of the internet, was it really that big, and what was it exactly?
I think we are stretching it too far. It's not the end of the internet, and I think it's the beginning of a new era, the new style of attacks. And this is not the first time these DNS amplification attacks have taken place. They did take place in 2011 and 2012 also, when Anonymous was targeting MasterCard and Visa for denying services to WikiLeaks. But to say that India is affected due to this, I think it's completely wrong. We are facing problems because of this cut in the optic fiber cables, undersea cables, and we are not the bigger victim of this DDoS attacks which are targeted against Spam House. So to say that this is going to be the end of internet, I think we are stretching it too far.
But really, I mean, when it comes to our daily lives, when we look at just how much time we spend on the internet or how much we use the internet, whether it's for banking operations, for tracking our stock market portfolios or investing, I mean, in the event of an internet collapse, what would we really do, Aparna, if you'd like to reflect on that?
Well, I mean, I think these sort of scenarios we've already seen in the first two web wars, against Estonia in 2007 and against Georgia in 2008. And I mean, in those cases, I mean, the websites which were attacked, I mean, yes, they did shut down for a while, and then really the activity, the internet banking and everything resumed as normal. I mean, these current attacks are conceptually very different because, they have attacked the DNS, which you cannot just simply shut down.
But you talk about in your books about cyber warfare being, in a sense, the warfare of the future that's almost upon us, and the world wars of the past will be the web wars of the future.
Oh, definitely, and I don't think these are not web wars are not just for the future. I mean, we see the attacks that already happened on India, and which were attributed to that Chinese. I mean, these have already been occurring over the past few years. So this is really it's not the future, it's the past and the present, and it's only evolving with more technological...
Now, Suresh, you have a dissenting voice on this. You think that this was in effect quite big, this could have impacted our lives quite severely.
I will phrase it a little differently. The first thing is that, as you're probably aware from media reports, the cable cut off the coast of Egypt is claimed to be sabotage, with the Egyptian Navy having arrested 3 people in a high-speed boat with underwater welding gear, who are alleged to have dived underwater and physically cut the cable. And undersea cables are subject to all kinds of damage from ships dragging down anchors, or from earthquakes and tsunamis, which can shift a lot of mud and everything else undersea and cause massive damage. And repairing any kind of undersea cable damage is an exercise that takes several weeks to a couple of months at least, depending on where the damage is. And it also costs millions of dollars because you have to transport very expensive, very sensitive equipment, including high-tech submersibles, on a ship all the way there.
Okay, but was this an act of... Was this an act, Jitin, if you want to comment on this, was this an act of active sabotage, or could this have been an accident? And if indeed it was sabotage, who was it targeted against?
Are you talking about the undersea cable?
The undersea cable.
No, this was, I think somebody may have done it with malignant intentions, but it was not a cyber attack, you would say, because I mean anybody can go and cut a wire, and definitely it's not a technical expert who's doing this. But if you look... But
the effect would be the same as a cyber hacking attempt?
No, it will be different, because if you cut the communication medium, I think then you are facing a different sort of attack. And here, what you're seeing in Europe, the DDoS attacks are completely cyber activism. What is happening is that 2 companies are out fighting a battle, and in their battle are becoming the normal internet users are becoming the victims, because what happened is that Spamhaus, which is a spam fighting company, they blacklisted certain websites which are hosted on a hosting company called Cyberbunker. Before doing that, they want Cyberbunker that you please remove these websites because they're hosting spam mail. Cyberbunker, which is housed in a NATO bunker, a former nuclear proof bunker, they said, look, we will not remove. Our policy is that if they are hosting child porn or terrorism, we will remove them. Otherwise, they are free to host whatever they want. We don't care. So the moment they blocked and blacklisted entire Cyberbunker itself, the attack begins. And such attacks, they might, normally when they take place in India, the culprit is the government, because they start blocking websites and then hackers start attacking government websites. We have a different problem in India, because here the government is curbing the free speech. There the 2 companies are fighting each other because government is refusing to curb any one of them. Okay.
But, since you bring up the point of India, are we at risk in terms of what we've seen today, just service outages across countries? It seems to have been, the impact on India seems to have been completely
there is a saying, I mean,
minimal.
Last year we held a hackers conference, and I think there was a person who runs a website called Hacker News. He said one very good thing, that we hackers are brothers beyond borders.
So it's a community, it's an international community of hackers
tomorrow,
who are looking out for the interests of everyone who uses the internet.
We are protecting free speech, I would say that. We are the big defenders of free speech. So tomorrow, if there is a policy of the government or government orders or court orders like blocking 78 URLs or blocking all the torrent sites in India, then what happens is that Indian hackers, they start to retaliate. And when they start to retaliate, obviously the brother beyond borders, they join them in. So today the target is Spamhaus, tomorrow it may be any government company or any Indian ISP. So the lessons we can learn is that the policies, the companies, your corporate ethics and hacktivism is all closely interrelated. And we must learn these lessons that, whatever hacktivism is taking place in India is a result of this flawed government policies and flawed IT Act.
Okay. Suresh Subramanian, there are those who believe that this was in effect a publicity stunt by people who wanted to actually provide net security. And, this was in a sense just to scare people off, saying, you need our services, this is how bad it can be, you know, pay us and we'll secure you. Is that a possible scenario?
It did happen.
Let us put it this way. Spam House is and has been for over a decade a volunteer-run organization, and they provide services by and large for free. In case there is somebody that's a very large ISP that's using the services, they charge what is effectively a nominal rate, which is probably a fraction of what commercial spam filters charge. This is an operation that does have a lot of trust among ISPs and among people who operate servers the world over, and I'd probably guess that several people in India are also configuring the mail servers to use Spam House as a filter. Cyberbunker this case does not appear to be as much a case of free speech as an attempt to block a lot of malware, that is virus control sites, not just spam that was hosted on Cyberbunker.
Right.
And the talk is, and based on some interviews I have seen of the operator of Cyberbunker, Sven-Olof Kamhuis, who says he's in Barcelona, some Russian and Chinese people who were upset by this blocking, mostly of malware sites, appear to have launched this attack in revenge.
Let us not
glorify. Now this attack would have impacted, excuse me, let's not repeat the entire past 15 minutes of 10 people talking past each other, but I'm glad to address this point.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that let us not glorify Spam House.
This would have impacted only once.
No, let us not glorify Spam House.
We are not glorifying anybody. I'm not holding any. I think we are not demonizing or glorifying anybody. I'm just pointing out.
Why are you not talking about what Cloudflare was doing? Was it not a marketing gimmick to offer services to Spam House that look, we are out here, we have the capacity to defend against such attacks? This was purely a marketing gimmick by Cloudflare to say that okay, we can defend under such attacks and we will provide services to all. And when they themselves came under attack, then they say okay, fine, we are also a victim. That was Cloudflare was purely doing its marketing stunt.
I will tell you something here. One thing I have noticed is that this attack was certainly one of the biggest DDoS attacks the world has known till now. And it was mostly mitigated, just like the Estonian attacks were mitigated, because a lot of ISPs around the world have been cooperating to filter this attack traffic out.
Okay, I think that's an important point that you're raising. Given the magnitude of this attack, Jatin, if you'd very quickly reflect upon this, because we're really running out of time as well. What lessons do we get? Do we draw from this for the future? How do we prevent another similar attack in the future?
My own website, the hackersconference.com, our website was also facing problems because of Cloudflare was under attack. The problem is that why did Cloudflare run into this picture when they knew that they had nothing to do with it? The lessons is that, at least for if you look at an Indian perspective, I would say that government should look at it, because it is not only about taking reactive actions. We have to be proactive enough to to ensure that such things do not happen. And the only way of doing it is that we should put our house in order. We should have laws which are not debated upon. We should not censor the internet, so that there is a Indian hacktivism is coming up, and the reason for it is purely the government censorship. I think we should control this.
Okay, you've made your point already. Aparna, as users, can we perhaps lessen our dependence on the net in any way? Is that even a possibility anymore?
Well, I mean, definitely the internet is the medium of the future. I mean, this is considered as common as the air you breathe. So I don't think that the answer for India is that no, go back in time, whereas the rest of the world is
there is no alternative in a sense to the internet.
Well, I mean, that's very hard to say, but I don't think the solution is to use the internet less. No, but I think it's, I mean, one important message is that look, the whole name of the game is security. We have to go beyond the models of outsourcing and so forth to realize that that's the most important issue now on the internet.
One quick point. The youngsters, the youth age, we are spending a lot of our everyday life online. So what happens is that when we see something wrong going online, we develop, we will take out our frustration, our dissent, our protest also online.
Right.
And then this innovative attacks start.
Social media particularly has become a form of registering protest, of getting mass movements along. So definitely turning away from the
origin of DOS attacks was this digital protest, but now it has turned into something very sinister, and that is a different story altogether. But I think these problems will actually grow, and you cannot stop them. If you cannot stop them, let's look at them.
All right, very quickly, because we have to wrap this up. Yes, Suresh, go ahead.
this cannot be called a form of digital protest, because DDoS attacks, especially DNS amplification attacks like this,
No, this is, I'm
use
not
a
saying
massive amount of bandwidth from other people, other sites. You cannot steal other
No,
people's
I think you have misunderstood what
resources
I'm
and
saying
other
is that
people's bandwidth to do this.
the origins of DOS attacks were found in the digital protest, but this sort of DOS attack is definitely a criminal act. This is what I'm saying. This is something sensitive, and we are opposed.
Thank you for agreeing with me there. And the solution to this is for ISPs and governments and third bodies to coordinate in India and coordinate with their colleagues around the world. I see all this coordination happening internationally, but very, very little of that happening in India, so that some of us who have international contacts are trying to bring those to India and reach out proactively to Indian ISPs through an organization called the MOG, the Messaging Anti-Abuse Working Group, probably the largest association of ISPs and messaging providers in the world.
Okay. Well, for all of us internet users, we certainly hope that we don't wake up one morning and find that we can't log on to our favorite websites or, do all the multiple
activities. It may be because of government censorship, but not because of DOS attacks.
Well, ethical hackers have their own point of view. I'm afraid we'll have to wrap this up over there. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for joining us on this discussion tonight. That's it on Left, Right and Center this week. From all of us here, goodbye. Thanks for watching.